Good Friday afternoon to you. Hope your weekend is off to a great start. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. Browns wrapping up their preparations for the Steelers over at First Energy Stadium, and we will talk a lot about that today a little bit later in the show. Munch Bishop will join us. Mark from 1350 AM, The Gambler. We begin by talking about what's going on out in Berea. So Denzel Ward ruled out for the game against the Steelers. Donovan Peoples-Jones ruled out for the game against the Steelers. Clowney and Takk McKinley, as well as Odell Beckham Jr., both or all three listed as questionable, but Baker Mayfield will be starting at quarterback. Here's some video. Browns working inside to avoid the nasty weather, and Baker Mayfield a new, more protective shoulder harness to keep that injured left shoulder, the non-throwing shoulder, as safe as it can be. You see him kind of getting all bandaged up and ready to go into battle. Baker Mayfield will be the starting quarterback for the Browns against the Steelers on Sunday over at First Energy Stadium. The first AFC North game of the season in an important divisional contest. Here is Kevin Stefanski talking about why the Browns decided to go with Baker Mayfield under center.
I can tell you it's pretty simple. It's really medically, he's ready to go. Our doctors, our trainers, second opinions felt very comfortable about that. And, he feels that he's ready, and he feels like he's ready to help his team win.
Let's welcome in the D-Man, Dennis Manoloff from WTAM 1100, 106.9 FM. D-Man, what do you make of it? I was a little skeptical, but he's ready to go. The reports are he's looked good in practice throwing the football. Just your thoughts about Baker being back under center.
Well, it is stunning to me in one respect, Dave, that he's going to be playing Sunday, barring anything happening between now and Sunday. Given the the extent of the problem in the shoulder that now we know includes a fracture, as revealed by Fox Sports' Jay Glazer ahead of the Thursday night game against Denver. But you know what? The Browns people and their doctors, they know more than we do. And they've looked at this thing, I'm sure, 18 different ways, and they've determined, I would have to believe, that it's a surgery of when, not if, as far as the torn labrum and everything else. But I was reading online about a doctor, a former doctor in the NFL, Dr. Chow, I believe it was, talking about how this fracture might be more of a dent in the ball and socket than a classic fracture, which means they can go ahead and okay him to play even though he technically has a fracture. So whatever it is, they've determined that he can give it a run. I'm just simply saying this, Dave Bacon, as an observer of NFL football, as somebody who has watched this game for decades, I just don't know how you play with an injury of that magnitude. And then on top of that, you got to go out against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who, yeah, we get it, they have their faults, and Ben Roethlisberger might be done after this season. Okay, fine. But that defense is capable of wreaking havoc, and certainly wreaking havoc on the quarterback. And all it takes is one shot on that shoulder, and I can't even imagine how you could continue. So it's going to be an incredibly difficult task for the Browns to keep Mayfield upright and keep him out of harm's way.
Assuming they can do that, I guess, the decision for the Browns comes down to Baker Mayfield's our starting quarterback. We believe Baker Mayfield, the way he is, gives us the best opportunity to beat the Steelers. When you look at it strictly in football terms, that has to be the way they arrived at this decision, I would think.
I agree with you. Listen, I like Case Keenum. Most of us like Case Keenum, but we recognize what he is. He's a well-paid, well-compensated backup. If you want to go deep, you want to get to the playoffs and go deep into the playoffs, your better bet is Baker Mayfield, even with the injured left shoulder. But the key to that whole equation is Mayfield has got to somehow avoid a catastrophic landing or a catastrophic hit. But, Keenum did a nice job as a backup was needed in the situation against Denver. He did his job. But long term, you ride Baker, I think, as long as you possibly can.
Yeah, I would agree. The one thing that I would say, Baker Mayfield will have to do something that's just not in his nature to do, and that is avoid contact. Get out of bounds. The 3 yards you might gain, if it isn't with the game on the line, is not worth you taking a hit that's going to put you on the sidelines for 2 or 3 more weeks. So he's going to have to alter the mindset just a tad. And I'm not saying be tentative. I'm just saying don't go and find contact unless it means, the difference between winning and losing a game.
You're right, David. Listen, quarterback, I can only imagine, and I think you can only imagine, is so complex. It's so difficult. It must be so difficult to play quarterback, especially in the NFL. On top of that, as you mentioned, you're adding a layer mentally and psychologically that obviously you wouldn't want to have to add, which is I got to worry about protecting this part of my body. On top of all of the things he has to do out there to help his team try to beat the Steelers, he now actually has to protect an injury, and how he navigates those waters might very well determine whether he gets through the game, unscathed.
One thing that should help Baker Mayfield is that Jack Conklin is, by all accounts, going to be back at right tackle. And when you look at Jack Conklin, Pro Football Focus ranks him as the top right tackle in the NFL. Minimum of 150 snaps. You see his grade, almost 83. And he's third among all offensive tackles in that grade. And again, he is expected to come back, and that means that offensive line is whole. And you need them whole when you got T.J. Watt trying to find a way to get to your banged-up quarterback.
Absolutely. I mean, it's great news for Cleveland to get Conklin back, even as they get bad news about Denzel Ward. But
we'll do Garrett next.
You're right. The Steelers figure out ways to get to the quarterback, even when they have some of their stud rushers down. But, of course, T.J. Watt is available and will be playing and hunting Mayfield. And listen, I don't think the Steelers, in fact, I know under Mike Tomlin they're not a bounty team, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Steelers are like, okay, we know all about this guy, Mayfield. We know all about his left shoulder. Let's make sure we hit him, And even if they're not setting up some sort of a bounty situation, they can still be going after the quarterback and going after him in the shoulder area. Because they know he's a wounded duck.
Yeah, that's got to be a concern without question. Myles Garrett, he is the Browns' equivalent to T.J. Watt on the other side. Anybody who's paid any attention realizes he's not getting a whole lot of help from the guys in the striped shirts with respect to holding calls. Garrett kind of addressed that situation a little bit earlier today.
Got to win. I know once you're like at the higher tier, I know AD deals it. I know TJ deals it, Khalil deals it. So I got to do the same thing. I got to find a way to win.
I know you play.
And again, talking about winning those battles and getting to the quarterback, and they need Myles Garrett without question. He's been very good, and he needs to continue to be good, and this defense really has to turn it up a notch.
Absolutely, David. And I know I'm from Cleveland, so I have an inherent bias. But what has happened to Myles Garrett vis-a-vis the officials is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, time and time again, you've seen him getting help. And I know, there's one part of it that says, well, Myles likes to go low. He likes to kind of dip and slide under. And so he walks himself into that hook that the left tackle will employ over the shoulder pad area. But even with that, he's still getting held. It's still illegal what is happening to Myles Garrett on way too many downs. And the officials, and I've never been one of those guys who's the officials they're the reason why a team lost or what have you. I hate that as an excuse. I even hate that as an explanation. But it's gotten so preposterous with Garrett being held and grabbed and pulled down and whatever else, that they need to do something about it. And the best way, in my opinion, to solve the problem is the officials, whoever's assigned to Myles Garrett, needs to identify early and needs to punish early. Throw the flags in the first quarter, and that will send the signal to the tackle, hey, you can't do this for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. Some of the stuff that's gone on with holding is pretty ridiculous. The D-man, Dennis Manoloff, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we will hear from former Brown Joe Haden coming back to First Energy Stadium. We will also take a look at what makes the Browns' running game so successful. Some X's and O's via the Steelers. A Steelers guy going to break down how the Browns run. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine. Too late at night. But feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
Welcome back to Sports4CLE. We continue talking Browns, getting ready for the Steelers. Keyshawn Johnson talked about Baker Mayfield's contract situation and getting back in there and playing and what it means. Here's Keyshawn Johnson from ESPN's KJM.
There's no question that he also sees the opportunity for Case Keenum to put some doubt into Andrew Berry's mind, who's the general manager of the Cleveland Browns, as to say, well, here's an opportunity for us to negotiate on a long-term solution with Baker Mayfield's contract. That number, as Case Keenum plays and wins games, as Baker Mayfield continues to get healthy, that is a negotiation ploy that they can use against him by saying, hey, buddy, this guy won 8 games in this particular system. He went, 7-1, 6-2. And that's the conversation where now Baker Mayfield number starts to dip a little. It's not that we don't want him, but we don't want him at that price. We want him at the price that fits what we want to do, because as you've seen, we can win with anybody.
Yeah, D-Man, I'm not buying that even a little bit. I don't think Case Keenum, how he plays versus, filling in for an injured Baker Mayfield, I don't think I just don't get the sense that that's the type of negotiation that Andrew Berry will ever take part in.
Hey, Dave, I buy the overarching theme of what Keyshawn was saying, but I wouldn't use Case Keenum as the way to get there. In other words, I think there's a question ongoing in Lou Groza Boulevard and at First Energy Stadium about Baker Mayfield and his value. Otherwise, the Browns would have extended him a ginormous offer, and he presumably would have accepted it. So the fact that that hasn't been done yet means there's still question from the front office about his value. And further to that, how much of Kevin Stefanski's system is responsible for a quarterback's production, and how much of a quarterback's production is responsible for Kevin Stefanski's system having success? I think they still haven't really figured that out. Who makes who better, as it were? Dare we say system quarterback, because I know That's an overused term, and the great Greg Cosell doesn't like it because he says everybody's a system quarterback. But before the Browns pay the big money, they want to know that Baker Mayfield is a transcendent talent. But I wouldn't use Case Keenum performing well or somehow having a good stretch of games as the reason why the Browns would tamp down Mayfield's value.
No, and to that point, I don't think they can get a real good read because they're taking into account he's not 100%. Even though it's a non-throwing shoulder, they can't get a read on just what his ceiling is yet, which it's another year. You're another year into it, and because of extenuating circumstances, you don't really know what the ceiling is for Baker Mayfield yet.
That's a great point, Dave. I mean, it gets really tricky now because no matter what happens the rest of the way, Mayfield's shoulder injury is a huge factor in this entire season. And so you go into the offseason with more uncertainty even, and the Browns still haven't seen, I don't think, what they want to see out of Mayfield because he hasn't been healthy enough to deliver it.
Yeah, and again, you don't know what his ceiling is. I truly believe that. I don't think now, because of the shoulder, that you can get a read on that. Joe Haden, coming back to Cleveland to play at First Energy Stadium, spent the first part of his career here with the Browns. Haden talked about the quarterbacks, be it Case Keenum or Baker Mayfield, as well as how good this Browns offense is.
I mean, I like Baker Mayfield. I think he's a little better than Case Keenum. I think he has a little more arm strength. But besides that, they're a really run-heavy first team. You know, their offensive line is unreal, and then their running backs behind them are amazing. They've been doing it a really long time they've been running the ball really well for a while now. So the key thing to stopping the Browns is not just stopping Baker, to standing back there, dropping back the pass, winning first and second down, putting them in third and long possessions. But they don't get in those possessions because they can run the ball so well on first and second. So I think our biggest thing is just making sure we can stop the run and hopefully get them into the pass where TJ and those boys can get after them. Yeah. I think it's just really, really disciplined eyes, unless the receivers are crack blocking or start blocking you, you know what I'm saying? Well, our main goal is to make sure they don't get over our heads. So the front eight is going to be able to handle that. But just making sure it's eyes and keys.
And D-Man, everybody knows now you got to stop the Browns' running attack.
Yeah. And first of all, Dave, can you believe Joe Haden is 12 years in now? I mean, 12 seasons for Joe Haden. And by the way, 5 in Pittsburgh. It seemed like just yesterday he was leaving Cleveland. He's already played 4, and now this is his 5th season with the Steelers. But, yeah, I didn't take issue with pretty much anything that Haden said there. The run is what the Browns are going to try to hang their hat on, you would think. On Sunday, use their power and use their offensive line, their unreal offensive line, I think was the quote that Haden used. So, yeah, I don't disagree with anything he said.
Here's an interesting one. So Merrill Hodge, former Steelers running back, really good at breaking down run games. He did this on the Browns running attack, and what makes that attack, the power attack with Nick Chubb, so effective. Here's Merrill Hodge from Steelers.com. Take a look at this.
Well, here's what makes it a power O. It's kind of the blocking. This tackle's going to kick out here, tight end will kick out here. They actually pull his guard and they bring him into the hole. Your fullback / tight end, he's leading up in there. And then the runner, he's downhill. A lot of bodies, it's a power run. And as a defense, you have to control 3 things: line of scrimmage, point of attack, and contain. You got to do all 3 things. Well, let's watch what happens. The Chargers do a really good job in 2 areas. Ball carrier has the ball. Line of scrimmage, pretty good. Point of attack, pretty good. Contain here's a problem. Nobody's there. Well, good runners will find the vacated area. He does that. From the end zone, you get a much better feel of the play itself and how you have to defend it. First, the blocking. Tackle here, tight ends here, other tight end here. They'll pull this guard around, big bodies here. The runner downhill. Let's get to that point. Once we get there, really the Chargers have done a pretty good job when you see this. Point of attack, closing here. and closing here. But this is why Chubb could be dangerous. He presses the hole, pulls the defender here, then he bounces it. You can't lose contain because this can happen to your defense.
And D-Man, that's such a good explanation and made really simple, and it shows you why the Browns' running attack is so effective.
Yeah, Dave, and you know who else is capable of that is that type of bouncing out is Dearness Johnson. I mean, we saw a virtuoso performance from DEFJ, as I like to call him, against Denver. Dearness Johnson wasn't just grabbing the ball from taking the ball in the handoff and just blasting into the line. He was figuring out, poking and prodding. He was willing to be patient and then exploding through a crease. So I think the Steelers are going to have their hands full with not only Nick Chubb, but Dearness Johnson.
I would agree wholeheartedly. And to your point, Nick Chubb, since 2018, his PFF grade, 93.0. That's a rush grade. #1 among all running backs in the NFL. That's how important it is that the Browns have Nick Chubb back in the backfield against the Steelers.
Dave, what would we do without Pro Football Focus?
I know.
What would the Browns do without Pro Football Focus? I'm amazed at their technology and their ability to grade a player to the extent that they do. And by the way, again, nothing but mega props to PFF. But I've watched plays by a particular player in a game, and I'm going, okay, what would I grade that player on this particular play in terms of numerical value? And it's really difficult to do. So I give credit to PFF, and as long as they keep grading Browns players high, then my hopes will stay high for the Browns.
Well, the other thing is that it's somewhat of a it's an unbiased opinion. They're grading it, and it's not like there is a bias in their grade. So that's one of the reasons I do like looking at it. And they grade everybody, so it's interesting, and it provides you a neutral opinion. The D-Man, Dennis Manoloff, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we will hear more about the Browns becoming a factor in the AFC North from former Brown Joe Haden, plus CBS Sports. Are the teams tricks or treats in the AFC North? We'll dive into that. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Sports4CLE continues. Browns getting ready for their first divisional game of the year. They face the Steelers over at First Energy Stadium, 1 o'clock Sunday. Joe Haden knows a little bit about the history here in Cleveland. He talked about the Browns becoming a factor in the AFC North and just how tight that race is expected to be this year.
They are very, very talented. All of the players there. It's more structured. They have a really good head coach that's been there consistently. They have a quarterback. They have Baker Mayfield. He's been there for a couple of years now. So it's not too much turnaround. I think when I was there, that was the main thing. Different quarterbacks, different coaches, different staff. They've been rocking with the same staff now for a little bit longer. I think Savansky's becoming comfortable to like Baker. The offensive line, they've been able to build. They had a good defense since I was there. So I think everything's just finally coming to fruition for them.
And D-Man, the North figures to be very, very interesting this year. All four of the teams kind of right there within a game and a half.
Yeah, and you know what? The Bengals put everybody on notice if they weren't already on notice when they, this past Sunday, went into Baltimore and punked the Ravens 41-17. Admittedly, a second half punking because they were down 17-13 early in the third. So the Bengals already have pelts on their wall of at Steelers and at Ravens. They're 5-2 and they're leading the division by virtue of their head-to-head over Baltimore. We know the Ravens are nasty. The Steelers are 3-3, but you know what? I just looked at the losses for the Steelers, and they've lost to the Vegas Raiders, the Green Bay Packers, and somebody else that has, had an excellent record. I can't remember the third team, but their 3 losses have come against quality opponents. So I don't think that they are over the hill and out of the mix yet. And of course, Cleveland. How good is Cleveland, Dave Bacon? Because the Browns are 4-3. All right, good. They're over 500, but look at the quality of victories. I mean, against a Denver team that's lost 4 in a row. You beat a terrible Texans team. You beat a Bears team that's sub 500 and was destroyed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Sunday, were humiliated. And you beat the Vikings, who are kind of middling right now. I expect the Vikings to be decent by the end of the year. So there really isn't a quality win other than maybe the Vikings on the Cleveland Brown ledger. And yet we have every right to talk about them as being in the mix.
Yeah. They have not made that big play that they need to beat a quality opponent. They've beaten the teams they should beat, and again, good teams do that. All right, let's turn our attention. CBSSports.com did something. Halloween's coming up Sunday when the Browns play the Steelers. They did a trick or treat. So are the teams, and they did it for every team. We're going to look at the AFC North. So the AFC North, Cleveland Browns, trick or treat. They say trick. That means they don't see them as a contender. Any comparison is the crunch. They've got the right stuff, but their foundation pieces are all crunchy and brittle. Baker Mayfield needs his backfield and himself healthy to keep the team rolling down the stretch. Now, Nick Chubb is back. Baker Mayfield's going to be playing. The offense is there, so that's okay. All right, let's go on to the Steelers. Steelers is another one. They say they are a trick, so they're saying they're not real contenders. Old-fashioned molasses candy. And the comment is just Big Ben is old. The Bengals, they're saying the Cincinnati Bengals are a treat, meaning they believe Cincinnati a contender. Junior Mints, surprisingly potent. They're the product of a perfect match. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, chocolate and mint. And the Ravens, the Baltimore Ravens, also a trick, so they say they're contenders. Snickers, nothing wakes you up more in the morning than seeing Lamar Jackson with the ball in his hands. And D-Man, that is especially true if you are a Cleveland Browns fan who has seen Lamar Jackson too often running down the field with orange helmets chasing him.
First of all, mega props for the creativity of the whole trick-or-treat theme. Let me go back to the Steelers. They've lost to the Vegas Raiders and the Bengals, in addition to the I'm forgetting the third team. No, Packers, Raiders, Bengals. Those 3 teams have been really good this year. Those are the 3 losses for Pittsburgh. I don't really disagree that much with any of the trick-or-treat things. I think the Browns situation is too tenuous with Mayfield's shoulder. The Steelers are hacking and wheezing, and I do believe that Ben is on such a decline that I just don't think he can, suddenly find the fountain of youth when it's necessary. The Bengals made a believer out of me in Baltimore. I was hedging my bets until then, but I saw that team with the skill position players they have, and their defense, even more importantly, their defense is becoming legitimate. So I'm buying the Bengals at this point. I'm not saying they can't fall off, but at this moment I buy them. And then the Ravens, I hate to do it because I hate the Ratbirds, but as long as you have Lamar Jackson under center with that team and the pieces they have, with John Harbaugh coaching, I certainly wouldn't put the Browns ahead of the Ravens until the Browns show me they finish a season ahead of the Ravens. So, yeah, I think at this moment through week 7, the two contenders, more so than pretenders, are the Ravens and the Bengals.
Yeah, I'm curious to what the Bengals do moving forward. I'll be real interesting to see. They have a game they should win handily against the Jets. I'm curious because I did think they had a chance to beat the Ravens. Now I want to see how they handle a little bit of success. I also am curious how that offensive line holds up as well as their defense. But again, they're pretty good. So Pro Football Focus ranks the Steelers' offensive line among the worst in the NFL. How important do you think it is this Sunday for the Browns' defensive line, D-Man, to take advantage of that? The Steelers' offensive line has not been good.
Yeah, that has to be a point of emphasis. You know that on some greaser board at Browns headquarters in Berea, there's the PFF grades of every Steelers lineman, and they're like, look, we got to exploit this. The math says that if a PFF grade is this low, then we better get 5 sacks or something like that. Yeah, they have to make life miserable for Ben. They have to, I think this is a game that the Browns need. The Browns D needs to. I would stop short of saying win it, but the Browns defense needs to set the table for victory, similar to the way it did with the Bears, the way it did with the Vikings, and then to a certain extent the way it did with the Broncos, because it really has been a mixed bag for the Cleveland D. They've had 3 poor performances, albeit against good teams and good quarterbacks, 3 not good performances. 3 good performances against mediocre to bad teams, and then the Texans game that I kind of said was a toss-up. So the Browns D needs to come to play against the Steelers.
The Steelers could not run the ball for anything last year. Najee Harris has changed that a little bit. How big of a concern is Najee Harris, do you think, for the Browns defense? Let me ask it to you that way.
It's a big one. He's a big one. I think that's going to be their primary focus, really, because Harris has shown that he can do some things, and especially when he gets to the second level. So, yeah, I would say that is a top priority for the Bengals to solve the Najee, or to stop Najee Harris.
The D-Man, Dennis Manoloff, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, our Pick 4 segment will tell you where we stand year to date. We will also tell you who we think wins the Browns-Bengals game, among others. Sports4CLE, will be right back. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
We continue talking Browns Steelers with the D-Man, Dennis Manoloff from WTAM News Radio 1100 106.9 FM. D-Man, you were 2-2 last week. I was 3-1. I am now at 500. 12-12 on the year. You're a little bit behind me at 9-14-1, but again, I am capable of falling off the face of the earth, as we have seen. All right, let's begin. Browns, Steelers. So the Steelers, 3.5-point underdogs here in Cleveland. Who you going with?
I'm going to go. I saw a field goal game regardless of Mayfield playing, and I'm going to stick to that. I'm going to think that the Browns win the game, but the Steelers cover because of that hook. That hook makes me feel good, and so I don't want Browns fans mad at me. I'm saying the Browns will win outright, but I think the Steelers will cover.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I don't. I think the Browns win the game. I don't think they win by more than 3.5. I think the only way they're able to cover that 3.5 is if the defense creates multiple turnovers. And I just haven't seen it from the defense. I think we need to see the defense kind of start to become the unit we thought they were going to be. And you know what? You look at the Steelers, and when I think about it, the Steelers under Ben Roethlisberger, as he currently is, are a whole lot more like the 4 teams the Browns beat than the 3 teams they lost to.
Agreed.
All right, another game that we are both talking about is the Titans and the Colts. So the Titans are 3.5-point underdogs in Indianapolis. Colts 3.5-point favorites at home. Who do you like in the Titans and Colts matchup?
Wait a minute, Dave. Hold on a second. The Titans are dogs?
Yep.
Oh, man. I misread producer Brian there. My fault totally. All right, I'm going to ask that Brian and you reverse my pick.
Okay.
Give me a Vrabel plus the points, because here's the thing. Mike Vrabel as a favorite, I'm not so sure about. But Mike Vrabel as an underdog, I love that play. So I'm sorry, I misread that. Mike Vrabel loves being an underdog, and his team is red hot. And I know the Colts are playing better, and they beat the San Francisco 49ers in Santa Clara. But the Titans, you want to talk about stacking victories. Their last 2 victories are against the Bills and against the Chiefs. So I think that the Titans will not only cover, I think they'll win outright.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm going to go with the Titans plus 3. I thought we were going to disagree on that one, but yeah, I think the Titans. Derrick Henry has been everything they would hoped he would be. Tennessee's defense playing a little bit better than most thought they would. So I'm going to agree with you. So we're both on the Steelers. We're both on the Titans.
I have no opportunity to gain on you, Dave. I don't think.
You might. We differ We have a different game as one of them. So let's do the Eagles at the Lions. So the Lions, 3.5-point underdogs at home.
I love this spot for the Lions. I mean, the Eagles are scuffling, and I'm sure they're going to be sitting there going, this is ridiculous that we should be favored by more. But their results haven't borne that out. Meanwhile, Detroit somehow, some way has avoided a victory, and they're still packed off at the officials for the clock operators, or more so the official, because the clock went to 0 when Lamar had that 4th down play. But in Detroit, when they should have beaten the Ravens, I like the Lions here to finally win a game. Therefore, I'll certainly take them as the underdog.
Yeah, I agree. I think they get their first win of the year. I think they continue to play really hard for Dan Campbell. We kind of laughed at him with his kneecap comments when he was hired. But that's a team that has a lot of fight. And the Browns have them in a couple of weeks, and that's a team you do not want to overlook because, as you mentioned, they should have beaten the Ravens, and then the clock goes to 0, and then Justin Tucker comes and hits a 66-yard field goal to win by 2. So that's the Lions. I like them to win outright as well. All right, for your 4th one, you got the Panthers at the Falcons. Falcons are 3-point favorites at home. Who do you like in that one?
I don't know why I'm going to the Atlanta Falcons. Well, every time I do, Matty Ice and the boys let me down. I mean, if this had been anything more than 3, then I wouldn't have even touched it. But I can see the Falcons winning this game by a field goal, so that would at least give me a push. I don't like this too much, but I'm willing to ride Matty Ice and Kyle Pitts to a victory over a struggling Carolina Panthers team.
Yeah, the Panthers got beat up by the Giants. That was my really bad pick. I usually have, if you find the biggest blowout, I've usually picked the opposite one in these point spreads, just as a word of warning.
Still been good, though.
I'm 500, and then I have the ugliest losses that you could possibly have. All right, my fourth one, I'm going to go with the Seahawks minus 3.5 at home against the Jaguars. And I figure I don't think Jacksonville will be able to score very much against Seattle's defense. I know they've struggled a little bit. I think Geno Smith finally gets a win for the Seahawks, and I like Seattle at home. I think Trevor Lawrence has all kinds of issues up in Seattle, and I think the Seahawks get a much-needed win. I think they cover the 3.5. So, D-Man, I do have the lead. I'm at 500. I'm trying to break above the 500 mark for the year. You got one game where you can gain on me. So, you got the Falcons.
I picked the wrong time to try to gain a game on you. I like your pick a lot better than my pick. I like the Jaguars getting punked more than I like Atlanta winning by more than 3.
The D-Man, Dennis Manoloff. D-Man, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. I'm sure we will we'll be back at it next week to see if you gained ground or if I am able to pull away here. The D-Man, Dennis Manoloff. Remember, WTAM 1100 as well as 106.9 FM. Thanks very much, D-Man.
Thank you very much, Dave.
All right, the D-Man. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We will continue to talk Browns, getting ready for the Steelers at First Energy Stadium. Mark Munch Bishop from 1350 AM, The Gambler, and Munch on Sports will join us. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
Welcome back to Sports4CLE. We continue talking Browns, getting ready for the Steelers Sunday. First AFC North game of the season, 1 o'clock at First Energy Stadium. Let's welcome in Mark Munch Bishop from 1350 AM, The Gambler, Munch on Sports. Munch, as always, man, appreciate it. Great to see you. All right, Pro Football Focus, matchup to watch in this one. Browns offensive line versus Steelers defensive line. What do you think about this? Neither team really thrilled with how the season has gone to date. Both of them need this one. Offensive line has allowed pressures, bottom 10 in the league. So they've given Baker some time to pass. We know the running game has been effective. You see Cam Hayward, T.J. Watt going to be challenges. How important is this matchup between the Browns O-line, Steelers D-line?
David, number one, I want to thank you. When the hand is on the chin, I know Bacon's got me thinking in a big, big way, okay? And I like the stimulation. But here's what the matchup is. It is of tantamount importance because Cam Hayward has been an animal this year. All right, he has just been unstoppable. And you mentioned Mr. Watt. Well, we know how good he is. So why is this so important for the offensive line? Because they must handle the 3 down linemen for the Steelers. They still play a 3-4 and the 2 men on the outside, which is Watt. Not even quite sure who the other one's going to be. But here's what you have to do. They have to allow those backs. They have to clear the path so those backs can run right at Devin Bush and our old buddy Joe Schobert. Because right now, those 2 gentlemen are not on the field the whole time. In fact, those 2 gentlemen get pulled off the field on occasion. Devin Bush, I know he's coming off a horrific knee injury, has been a major, major disappointment, and Joe Schobert just showing foibles of his game. So the bottom line is, we've heard that before. Remember the first year Nicole Jackson had 100 tackles? We were all praising him, and he thanked us for that. And he goes, wait a minute, Praise me when I get 100 tackles at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage, not 5, 6, 7, 8 yards deep. So that's what the Browns line has to allow the running backs to do. Get into that next level and go from there. Jack Conklin coming back is going to help immensely. David, you just summed it up. That is a monstrous matchup in this game.
Yeah, and Munch, so we'll look at it even a little further. The Browns, we know, lead the league in rushing. Steelers have allowed the seventh, actually, they have been the seventh best run defense. They've only allowed 2 rushing touchdowns on the season. So that right there is, you know, the Browns have to find a way to get their running game unleashed. That's going to go a long way in determining this one.
You know, I want to say this too when you talk about the rushing touchdowns. We know, and it's just interesting with the different styles. Of course, Kareem won't be there. But we know inside the 10, you know what? As great as Chubb is, I'm giving the ball to Hunt. However, isn't Nick the kind of guy that, you know, he's going to get hit, stood up on his own 40 or perhaps at midfield or on the other team's 40, and bang, before you know it, he's off to the races. To put one in that way, Dearness Johnson showed us that he can find a touchdown too. But don't forget, the not forgotten man, the fullback in this team too. Put one in his belly and let him go between the guard and tackle for the center and the guard on some occasion. But yeah, they're going to have to put the ball in the end zone rushing.
Yeah, you know what? Johnny Stanton has been effective running the ball when they have given it to him. All right, another thing that is going to be critical, turnovers. Joe Woods, Browns defensive coordinator, talked yesterday about the lack of turnovers that this defense has created.
That's the one area that's going back. During this mini-bye, we just went back and looked at our first 7 games. And we looked at all different areas, and one of the areas that we're struggling in is takeaways. Now, the one thing that we're doing differently than we did last season, we're playing more man coverage. So a lot of times your back's to the ball instead of, you know, dropping the zones and seeing the ball. So that'll make your numbers go down a little bit, but we've had opportunities and we haven't cashed in.
And Munch, that's this defense. Kevin Stefanski wants his defense to take the ball away. Both the Browns and the Steelers' Ds have forced only 5 turnovers all year. Steelers have turned it over 6 times, so they're -1. Browns have turned it over 7 times, so they're -2. That explains why they're about 500. Really good football teams that are negative in the giveaway takeaway usually don't win a lot of football games.
David, I'm having a glorious Friday, so I don't want you to think I'm like the Grim Reaper or anything with Halloween being tomorrow. But flashback to the really just ridiculously bad years of this team, negativity abounded in that giveaway takeaway column. When you, and someone said to me the other day, well, does it really matter? Yes, it matters. I don't care where you take the ball away on, your own 10 or their own 10 from the other team. What happened last night in Thursday Night Football? An interception to seal the victory for the Green Bay Packers against Arizona. So go for the football. However, I want to just say one thing is that you must tackle first. So we've seen it how many times, David, guys going for the football, going for the strip, you know, rather than tackling the player. Well, the player pulls the ball away and bang, he's off to the races. So secure the tackle. If you get punch it out, so be it. Or if you could jump a route, but make sure that you're jumping that route and you're accurate, because if not, that receiver is going to get a step past you and be off to the races. And speaking of turnovers, let's get a meaningful sack out of Miles today. Ben Roethlisberger, we know, is a statue. I thought I saw him outside the Cleveland Museum of Art the other day, and it was one of the Renoirs or something like that, you know. Get to that sucker. And pardon that, you got me all fired up, you know. But not just with a sack if you're up by 3-4 touchdowns. Early and often. It seems like the Browns' pressure has started later these years. Go after them. Go get them. Go for that football, David.
Yep, I think Myles Garrett would love to get his first strip sack fumble of the year. It'd be a perfect time over on Halloween. All right, Mark Munch Bishop is now going to step aside, take a quick timeout. On the other side of the break, we will get a voicemail of Truth and Reason dealing with both Joe Woods and Baker Mayfield. We'll also talk keys to the victory for the Browns against the Steelers. Mark Munch Bishop and I will be right back. Sports for CLE will return. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery, Partners in Education, where stars shine. Browns and Steelers, 1 o'clock over at First Energy Stadium. Time to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason about Joe Woods and the defense.
This is Billy G. from Florida, a longtime fan since 1950. Listen, there's a couple of things I want to mention. First of all, I still say that Joe Woods is not the answer. He's got some great players on the defensive side of the ball, and unless he mixes this up against the Steelers and frees up Myles Garrett some, and because I will tell you the truth. The Big Ben is going to have a field day against this team, and now my second point: if they don't sit Baker is he's not 100%. He's far from it. He's hurt, and even if he were 100% on big games, I just don't trust him, and. It's just one of those things, but he's no Joe Burrow, that's for doggone sure. All right, you take care. Have a good day. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
All right, so that was obviously from yesterday evening, so Baker Mayfield playing. You know what, the results early this year have not been great in big games for Baker Mayfield. He won a playoff game last year. That's a pretty big game in Pittsburgh, so let's not forget that. But I would say slow down on Joe Woods. Let's give him a full season. You're only 7 games into the season. Let's see how this starts to look. This is the time of the year and some of the teams where it should start looking more dominant on defense.
You know, it's interesting, Dave, because number one with Joe, much maligned, usually it's on the offensive side, okay? But the bottom line is there have been a lot of breakdowns, and I put more on the players. Now, I want to ask you this. It's something that is bothering me, and I've seen this on every level of football. There is no need for Miles and Clowney or Miles or McKinley, whoever's at the ends, to line up 3 or 4 yards outside the right tackle. That gives them an extra takes us extra second longer to get to the quarterback. These are defensive ends. They're not outside linebackers in a 3-4 that are a little bit lighter. So push them in a little closer. But little by little, Joe Woods is learning things that we're seeing. Ronnie Harrison, vicious when it comes to tackling, supporting the run. I'm not quite sure in my good days that he could cover me, okay? The injuries to Ward, Greedy coming back, Newsome learning the game, okay? So those are little things, too, that they have to overcome. And there is no doubt in my mind, I know that he's a young fella, but I'm putting a lot on him. But JOK being out hurts this team immensely. That's that high linebacker, free safety hybrid. You're saying, well, what is he? Well, he's a linebacker. But I'll tell you this, David, how lucky is this team? And so they went out and got him, so it's not like it's for the effort that they have Mr. Walker in there to linebacker core, because compared to what has played linebacker in the past, and Malcolm Smith gives everything coming off the bench, and not a lot left, whatever it is he leaves on the field. But Walker has been just so solid all the way around. So, yeah, you know what? Woods, I won't call him a pass, but just keep improving every game.
All right, let me ask you this, Munch. Keys to this. What do the Browns need to do to come away with the win?
Okay, number one, as I mentioned earlier, you have to run the football into the second level. Get that ball out in a hurry. And please, for our caller, love them, treasure everybody that supports the show. But Baker Mayfield, come on. If you're looking at, you're going to yank him in this game, there's a reason why Baker's a starter. The other gentleman, Case Keenum, who I'm dang glad that we have him, is the backup quarterback. But the bottom line is you have to get that balance. You have to get it going from the get-go. And something else, Dave, most people agree with me. The dreaded analytics agreed with me. What happened last week? Browns win the coin toss. They talk the ball. They take the ball, go right down. Kevin Stefanski has those 15 plays scripted. If you only need 5 or 6 or 7 of them, so be it. But as I always like to say, being a student of Woody Hayes, a student of history, did General Patton ever defer? Absolutely not. Attack, attack, and attack. Go get them and put one up early, get the crowd in it, and get their defense on the heels.
Yep, and get your defense going. All right, Mark Munch Bishop, I know you got something you want to say. High school football playoffs starting, so take us there.
Oh, David, thank you so much. You're just nothing but the best to all the teams. You know, I was questioning the extra teams being added, and I'm sure you're going to be out of the game tonight calling it. But the bottom line is this, is that every player that I have talked to said that they're all for it, so be it. That's what should count. However, some of the biggest shout-outs where I honed my chops as a young kid going to Senate League games, whether it was at John Adams Field, John Marshall, on down the line, I got to give a quick little shout out to the Rhodes Rams in honor of Phil Gary, their late coach. They're in the postseason, along with Rodney DeCepeda and his Johnny Hornets. And how about Whack Thud Tarblood, Glenville Tarblooders under Ted Gibbs Sr. You got to love what these young men are doing in the Senate, David. Wish them nothing but the best. Everybody playing today, go get them.
Yep, I agree with you, Munch. There is nothing wrong with extending the career of high school football players at least one more game by adding the playoffs, expanding the playoffs. You get more people that get to experience a playoff game. Mark Munch Bishop, as always, man, appreciate the time. Thanks for hopping on, and look forward to talking to you some more as football season goes on.
And back at you, my friend. Take care of yourself.
All right, Mark Munch Bishop from 1350 AM, The Gambler, and Munch on Sports. Before we go, each week the Ohio Lottery Partners in Education Program recognizes role model students from all over the state of Ohio. Today, we head out to Hudson High School. Delaney DiGeronimo is not only a basketball player, but a golfer who started out in a much more contact-oriented sport. Delaney DiGeronimo from Hudson High School, this week's Shining Star. Hudson High School's Delaney DiGeronimo has always been one of the school's best athletes from the time she was in grade school.
From 2nd to 9th grade, so my freshman year, I played tackle football. And what got me started was definitely my 3 older brothers who needed a 4th to play backyard football with. So they definitely got me started. But yes, I played for 8 years.
And so you were in that little Christine, you were just the kicker, right?
Oh, I played quarterback, safety, wide receiver. I tried to, yeah.
In short, Delaney played all the positions where the best and most athletic players play. After her freshman year, DiGeronimo picked up a new sport with different challenges.
I turned my attention to golf. I had grown up golfing a little bit, but this is the first time I ever took it seriously, competitively.
I met Delaney right after her freshman year. She had just stopped playing football, and she was looking for another sport to play in the fall.
I don't know. I was ready for something new. I loved it to a point, and I still love football, but I was just ready for something new.
Golf is definitely a much different challenge athletically than football.
Football is very physical, but I'd say the biggest thing with golf is the mental side, which was something that at the beginning I struggled working on my mental game, and golf really helped me in my other sports as well, because I also play basketball, and golf really helped me with my mental game. Every single hole, you just got to forget about the last one and focus on the next shot, which I think was really important, and which our coach helped us work on as well. Our mental game is very important.
As she mentioned, Delaney still plays for Hudson's basketball team, but has come to appreciate the challenges that golf provides.
Golf is a very calm sport, I guess, because it's not as there's not as much going on all at once. So I really like the focus that you have to put into each individual shot. That's probably my favorite part.
That emotional and that social intelligence that she has, she's able to bring out to the golf course, and that helps so much because she knows not to overthink things, but she knows that she also needs to think while she's playing, which is one of those balances in golf that's extremely delicate.
In the classroom, Delaney is also a star. She's part of the National Honor Society, carries a 4.3 grade point average in accelerated classes, and next year she plans on majoring in political science in college with her sights on law school.
Delaney's extremely intelligent. She She's taking our new Dimensions class at Hudson High School, which is a senior level class that studies things like philosophy, history. They read plays. It's a very challenging course, and her teachers are telling me that she's thriving in that course right now.
DiGeronimo is also involved in the community, working with Huddle, which helps freshmen adjust to life in high school. Delaney is also part of Hudson Community First, a service organization, but it's the Alzheimer's Association that has a special personal importance.
We usually help with the walk to end Alzheimer's, which is a big walk. My grandmother has Alzheimer's, so my family's very involved with different events that they host.
She's absolutely a leader. From challenging herself in school to challenging herself on the golf course, but setting an example for our younger players and for her peers at the same time. She does a great job of building a positive environment. It's really contagious, the mood that's set.
If you know a student who deserves recognition, we want to hear about them, and you can nominate them completely online. Go to OhioLottery.com, find the About section. Click on Partners in Education. There you will see links to nomination forms. Nominate that student as an academic all-star, and they could end up being featured as our next shining star. All right, well done, Delaney DiGeronimo. That'll do it for this edition of Sports4CLE. We will see you again Monday at 4 o'clock. We will dive into that Browns-Steelers game and look ahead as the Bengals, another AFC North team on the horizon. That is Monday at 4. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you Monday on Sports4CLE.